Hi, everybody. It's Craig and Arun back with your college football week 14. Yes, it's the last full week of regular season for college football. And happy Thanksgiving if we didn't, or if you haven't missed us on any of the other videos. Hope you had a good one and a profit one. We look to keep those profits going and pay some of those early shopping bills maybe for Christmas. So we're going to have it's over 50 games, I believe, here for Saturday. We'll try to run through these a little quicker because we do hear your feedback. That you like it about an hour long or a little less, so we'll try to keep it about that. Of course, we'll spend a little longer on some of the big – this is rivalry week, some of those big games out there. Before we get to it, don't forget, if you want to get in on our top plays, very simple. Get our 2-for-1 football pass. We know we've been having a bunch of you on it every week so far. We didn't have the greatest week last week, but we bounced back this week. DocSports.com/Craig Arun. It'll be 14 plays, and it will come out on Wednesday this week. So if you buy on Wednesday or Thursday, it will be up for you, and you'll get 14 plays between Thursday and all the way through Monday. 6 from IC, 8 from me, including 3 top plays in there. DocSports.com/Craig Arun. Only way to get that 2-for-1 football deal. It's otherwise, if you go to the website, it's $99 each. Also, YouTube Premium. Great deal here. It's the edge. You add this to that 2-for-1 football pass, and you get all of our plays on YouTube Premium. These are all the extra plays that don't make our card. You'll get 3 plays every day, plus the levels 1 and 2 if you get on level 3 for just $49.99 a month. But of course, you can buy the other passes if you like. If you click the link in the description, it will take you to the link to buy and to get all the details. All right, IC. Let's get it going. College football, good Big 12 matchup to kick us off. Houston and Baylor, good battle of Texas here. Baylor -2.5. Baylor needs this game to become bowl eligible, just 5-6 on the year. Guessing that's probably why they're favored here against an 8-3 Houston team. Total 59.5. What do you like?
Yeah, so what you have here is Houston here who comes, Houston obviously it comes off a game where they lost to TCU 17-14 on November 22nd. Baylor, of course, lost to Arizona 17-41. Baylor desperately needs this game, right? They're 5-6. So both teams are coming off losses here. In fact, Baylor also lost to Utah as well, 28-55. They have not lost 3 in a row all year, so bear that in mind. Houston, of course, has not lost back-to-back games this year at all either. Baylor did beat this team 20-10 last year. It's interesting that Baylor comes in as the favorite here, but I got to tell you something. Given the fact that Houston only put up 14 points their last game, and given the fact that Baylor only put up 17 points their last game, I think these are going to be 2 ticked-off teams here coming in. And the fact that Houston is an underdog is a little bit surprising, too, because Houston probably has the better marketable wins, right? They have the win against Arizona State. They have the win against Arizona in there. And Baylor, of course, lost to Cincinnati, lost to TCU, lost to Arizona State. But to put it together, Craig, I'm going to take the over 59.5 between these 2 teams. All right, Craig. Does Ohio State finally get this monkey off their back against Michigan? Or maybe it's good luck. Maybe if they get beat by Michigan, they'll go win another national championship. So maybe, no matter what, they come out ahead. Note that Michigan, Craig, now has won 4 in a row, 2021, 2022, 2023, and 2024. Who do you like?
Yeah, remember the year before that, it was the COVID game that got canceled. So they really haven't won in almost 6 years. So it's going to be a tall task, I think, for Michigan this year. One, they got a freshman quarterback that basically needs to play a perfect game. He played much better last week, but 2 weeks ago, they got lucky to win at Wrigley Field facing Northwestern. He threw, I think, he had 4 turnovers. Michigan did. They got lucky to win the game, a couple really bad ones. And they're facing an elite – this is a much better Ohio State defense than last year. Now, last year, Ohio State was favored by 19.5 and lost. I kind of thought we'd get 12 or 13 points, to be very honest. I think you have to take Ohio State minus the points. And listen, there is no bigger Ohio State hater than me. I live in Ohio, and I do not like Ohio State. Don't like Michigan either. I just like Michigan. I hate Michigan less, I guess I should say. But when it comes to betting, it's all equal to me. I'll take Ohio State minus the points here. I just think they're too much this year. I think the freshman Underwood will make a key mistake and cost them this game. And to cover. I think Ohio State gets a cover. UK at Louisville. UK is 5-6 on the year. They need this to become bowl eligible. Louisville, it was like 3 weeks ago. They held, the playoffs in their hands. They just needed to win out. They won out. They were going to be in the playoffs. Since then, it's like the season has fallen apart. Now, do they have a letdown here against Kentucky? Louisville's favored by 3, total 46.5. What do you like?
How quickly does fortune change? Does fortunes change, right? You have a Kentucky team that obviously comes off of a bad loss to Vanderbilt where they got routed. Then you have Louisville who comes off a bad loss to SMU. where they lost 38-6, and how quickly Louisville has now lost after that SMU loss. They've lost to Clemson, Cal, and SMU, so they've lost 3 in a row coming in. Louisville did beat this team 41-14. I understand that Kentucky comes off of a bad loss too, but Louisville needs to step up in the biggest way possible here. And this is a team that beat Miami on the road, that beat Pittsburgh. They really do need to bounce back in a big way. Keep in mind that, Mark Stoops, a long time, obviously, UK head coach, and Jeff Brom used to coach at Purdue. I think what happens here is Louisville could be without Chris Bell, who's one of their top receiving weapons. Keep in mind that both these teams got blown out in their last game as well. The total's at 46.5, but I got to think Louisville's going to bounce back too. Especially, I understand Kentucky.
I think Louisville's without their quarterback. I think that's why this line is the way it is. The quarterback, I do believe, is he missed.
Yeah, so they are without him, but their backup quarterback's pretty darn good too, and the line sits at -3. But I wouldn't be surprised at all if this game goes over the posted total either, especially with Kentucky not being able to move the ball on Vanderbilt. I think Louisville is going to be more effective than people realize with this backup quarterback. They can't be any worse than what they were doing against Clemson and Cal. So I'm going to take the over, Craig, between Louisville and Kentucky.
Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss out on all the great content we have here at Doc Sports.
It relates to Toledo and Central Michigan. Toledo comes in as a 10.5-point favorite on the road. You have a Toledo team here that obviously is going bowling. So is Central Michigan here. Central Michigan recently beat Buffalo, and Toledo, of course, recently beat Miami of Ohio and Northern Illinois. Toledo beat this team 37-10 last year. Who do you like, Craig?
It's a little disappointing season for Toledo. I thought Toledo was the best team in the league, and then they just didn't put it on the field. They're 5-2, so they are tied 1, 2, 3, 4 teams in the MAC are all tied for second place. So there is a chance for them to win the tiebreaker and that kind of stuff, but it really shouldn't have came to that. Their losses were not pretty losses. Not that any loss is pretty, but you know what I mean. Like, you expect to lose to certain teams. You don't expect to lose to other teams. I think Toledo, though, rights the ship a little bit here. Now, do they cover? I don't think so. I think it's a closer game. I think it's within a touchdown. I'm going to take Central Michigan. And Central Michigan is another one of those teams that's 5-2, FYI. So the winner here will eliminate, one of those teams that all is 5-2 in the league. So take the points with the home underdog. I do think Toledo wins and keeps their hopes alive to show up in the MAC championship game next week. Next game, Colorado at Kansas State. Kansas State -17, total 49.5. Of course, news came out today when we're recording this late Tuesday that the starting quarterback will not play in this game so he can keep his red shirt available for next, for the future. Never know if you'll need that or not. So, I do like that they're watching out for the athlete here. Can Colorado keep this close? Kansas State needs this for bowl eligibility. They're 5-6 on the year.
Kansas State had a tight loss against Utah, 47-51. Colorado, of course, losing pretty badly to Arizona State, 42-17. You'd have to think that Kansas State, needs this game in the worst possible way to do well, considering Colorado's not going bowling. Kansas State also beat this team 31-28 last year. Kansas State started off last game extremely hot, right? This was their rushing attack exploded for like 472 yards in their last contest against Utah, and Utah's a really darn good team. What I like here is that I do think Kansas State, obviously they need to get to a bowl game. I think they played exceptionally well against Utah. They just fell short. And they played really hard against Utah because they played so bad against Oklahoma State, winning 14-6. But this is the same team that beat TCU, the same team that barely lost to Arizona. Colorado is just an absolute mess right now. They could hang tough, but I don't know. What do you say about a team that lost 17-52 to Arizona? Give me Kansas State -17 here. Craig, Ball State plus 17.5-point dog against Miami of Ohio. Keep in mind that Ball State comes into this game 4-7. Miami of Ohio is 6-5. So Ball State's not going to go anywhere. Who do you like in this game? Bear in mind that Miami of Ohio won 27-21 last year, and Miami of Ohio has won the last 5 straight between these two teams.
Yeah, Miami's not the greatest offensive powerhouse. Their defense has been very good this year. But, they lost a lot last year on offense, and they spent the entire year trying to put the pieces together. Just never really came together. But this is another 5-2 team in the MAC that's trying to stay alive. A win here, they stay alive to try to win the out of the 4 or 5 teams that are going to be tied at 5-2, the tiebreaker to go to play in the Mid-American Conference Championship next week. So I do think they win. They play motivated ball. 17.5 seems like a lot of points, though. especially a team that might only score 35 points. So it's like basically, they might even score 35, probably 28-31, I'm guessing. So I'm going to take the underdog here, Ball State. It is senior night at Miami, Ohio. I do think that sometimes leads a little extra pressure as well. Give me Ball State. Next game, Miami Pitt. A pretty important game here in the ACC. Of course, Miami was, the what ifs, all the close games that they lost on the year that they probably should have won. And now they're sitting on the outside looking in as far as the ACC championship game next week. And I don't know if they'll get an at-large bid now. I really don't know. They're probably going to need a lot of help, some mayhem in the SEC, I'm guessing is what they'll need. I don't think they're going to get that. So, but Miami's favored by 7, total 50.5. Nice win last week by Pitt on the road, kind of right at the ship after Notre Dame. What do you like here?
Yeah, I mean, Miami beat Virginia Tech 34-17, and Pittsburgh, of course, beat the Jackets 42-28, which is my free play winner on the Saturday's video. Pat Narduzzi is a really good coach, former defensive coordinator over at Michigan State, and Mario Cristobal has done a good job here at Miami. They did come off a nice win last week against Va Tech and actually has won 3 in a row coming in. But, keep in mind that these two teams haven't met since 2022 as well. Look, Miami needs some style points, and I think beating the snot out of the team that beat Georgia Tech would go a long way. It is interesting that, Miami is favored by a touchdown on the road. I think Miami can be every bit as good as, if they're focused, as they need to be. This is a Miami team that, yes, lost to Louisville and lost to SMU, and I'm pretty high on SMU. But it's the same Miami team that beat South Florida 49-12 when South Florida was just destroying teams. I'm going to take a flyer here on Miami. I think Miami gets it done. Keep in mind that Pittsburgh also beat them 42-16, and Cristobal lost to this team the previous time he played them. I know the public's on Pittsburgh here, but I'm going to back Miami here, and I think they get it done. Great ECU minus 7-point chalk against FAU. Keep in mind that ECU is 7-4. FAU is the inverse of 4-7. ECU has been playing pretty well, right? But they do come off an unfortunate loss, but they had won against Memphis, Charlotte, and Temple. Florida Atlantic, they had lost against Tulane. They had covered 3 in a row. ECU beat them 49-14 last year. Who do you like?
Well, that was a good game last week. FAU covered against UConn, had UConn on the ropes, and UConn pulled that out. I think it's another close game. It's senior night here. I don't think, even though they can't become bowl eligible, they're only 4-7 in the year, so they're not going bowling. I think this is their bowl right here. I think they play really well. East Carolina, I think, wins, but doesn't cover here, as FAU, they just do enough. This is one of those teams that it shakes your head because they really should be above 500, should be a bowl team, but they're just not. FAU plus 7 is the play, though. Iowa State at Oklahoma State. Of course, news today came out that the North Texas coach is taking the Oklahoma State job. So Oklahoma State will have a new coach here. We saw last week when Virginia Tech had that, they got the cover, played a little better for the new coach Franklin there. Do we see the similar here with Iowa State favored 14 on the road here at Oklahoma State, total of 47?
Yeah, Iowa State here, they're 7-4. Obviously, Oklahoma State is 1-10. An Iowa State team that I thought was, when they played each other about 2 years ago, Iowa State won 34-27. But I got to be honest with you. I think Oklahoma State was consistently playing a little bit better. This is their Super Bowl. I think they'll play exceptionally hard here. I've been pretty impressed with how hard Oklahoma State's been playing lately, right? They lost a tight one, 17-14 at UCF. Iowa State just beat Kansas 38-14. And Oklahoma State is absolutely playing their hearts out as well. You have an interim coach here in Doug Meacham who has gotten a lot out of these players lately. I want you to take a look at these splits of late here for Oklahoma State. Yes, after the firing, et cetera, the Tulsa game, they lost to Baylor 27-45, 13-41 Arizona, 17-39 to Houston, 17-49 Cincinnati, 0-42 to Texas Tech. But then wait a minute, watch this. 21-38 to Kansas, 6-14 to Kansas State as a 20-point dog, nearly beating UCF outright. I'm going to back Oklahoma State to get it done here. I think this is their Super Bowl. I think they get up for this game. Iowa State's also coming off a monster win as a 7.5-point dog against TCU. Give me the dog here. Give me Oklahoma State plus the points here. All right, Craig. Texas Tech, 23.5-point favorite as a 10-1 record against West Virginia, who is 4-7. Texas Tech, what else are you going to do? They continue to rock and roll here, winning several 4 to 5 games in a row, including beating Oklahoma State, Kansas State, BYU, UCF. West Virginia, of course, is 4-7. They're struggling a little bit. They did lose to Arizona State. But the first year they also lost to Texas Tech 52-15. The first year for Rich Rodriguez wasn't so bad. What do you think here?
Well, it wasn't so bad considering he replaced, I think, top 5 most players that had to be replaced this year was at this West Virginia football team. So, I mean, you have that much coming and going. You got to expect you're going to have some ups and downs. I mean, the downs, you lose at Ohio this year. That was a down. They followed up the next week, beat their rival Pitt, and we've seen how good Pitt was. So, I mean, you're going to have that. I do think this week Texas Tech wins and secures their spot in the Big 12 championship game next week. But remember, it's all about winning that Big 12 championship game. They lose that game, I don't think they're going to be in the playoffs. So I think they're going to try to stay healthy here. I'm guessing come second half, if they're up, 14, 17 points, we will not see a ton of players that don't have to play, trying to avoid injuries. Take West Virginia here. I think this is a sneaky 17 to 20 point game. And I think Texas Tech just says, hey, just get us to next week. Let's win. Let's be healthy next week. And that allows us to cover here. I would buy the 0.5 point to 24, obviously a key football number. Next game, Clemson at South Carolina. And I'm going to be honest, early in the year, before the season, I was looking ahead to the rivalry week. And I thought this game might could knock either South Carolina or Clemson out, or maybe both out of the playoff picture. Boy, was I wrong. 6-5 Clemson, 4-7 South Carolina. Clemson is an underdog on the road. I was shocked to even see that. South Carolina favored by 3, total 46. What do you like?
Well, welcome to the Palmetto Bowl. And Clemson beat Furman 45-10 last week, and South Carolina beat Coastal Carolina 51-7. And those people in Carolina really know how to live life. They just enjoy themselves beating up on two smaller schools here. Clemson, they have come into this game winning 3 in a row. They're going to go bowling. They closed out beating FSU, Louisville, and now Furman. South Carolina is not going bowling. But, obviously South Carolina plays a much more difficult schedule, right? Do you know who they played the last few weeks? Alabama, playoff team. Ole Miss, playoff team. A&M, playoff team. They finally got a break here. And the one team, it's brutal. And then before that was Oklahoma, playoff team. I mean, it's just absolutely brutal. And then, of course, they had to play LSU with a coach that's fighting for his job. I think South Carolina is a better team, dude. And I know they beat them 17-14 last year. I know Clemson has revenge. I don't think it matters. I think South Carolina just wants to wallop somebody. And this is a South Carolina team that's literally played 4 straight playoff teams. Is Clemson a playoff team? I don't think so. Obviously.
Last year.
Right. So when you lose to Alabama by 7, when you're right there with Ole Miss, and then you should have been A&M, give me South Carolina here. I think maybe they're turning the corner here. Let's take South Carolina. Craig, UCF plus 17.5 point dog against BYU coming in. UCF is interesting. They barely got past Oklahoma State, probably looking ahead to this game. BYU comes into this contest, obviously 9-1. Or 10-1 rather. BYU, of course, coming off a 37-24 win over this team last year. What do you think happens here?
BYU is a really good team. They're begging you at that 17.5 number to take the underdog. Don't fall for it. UCF's playing for nothing. BYU still holds out hope that they're going to get to the Big 12 championship game, win that game, and go to the playoffs. I think this is a statement game. BYU seniors. I think BYU just handles them. BYU, their offensive line, I watched them the whole game last night playing my Bearcats. They dominate. That's where they dominate. They're not the greatest, like wide receivers, quarterbacks, everything. They're not like great out in space, but it doesn't matter. They take you behind the woodshed, and I think they'll do that this week to Central Florida here. BYU minus 17.5. Don't forget, get in on our 2-for-1. That's both Indian Cowboy and my picks for football for the week. All you got to do, DocSports.com/Craig Arun. Instead of $99 each, it's just $99 for both of us. Good luck. See you in. FYU at Sam Houston. Sam Houston, don't look now. They were 0-9. They've won 2 games now. And they face FIU that's finally bowl eligible at 6-5. FIU's favored by 10, total of 51. What do you like here?
Well, keep in mind, FIU in their last contest obviously beat Jacksonville State 27-21. Sam Houston State, I give them a lot of credit, right? They haven't quit on the year. They did lose, the last contest 17-31, but they did beat Delaware in a monster win. They beat Oregon State in a monster win. Those are big wins, right? And so you see an FIU team that sits around 6-5, and Sam Houston State at 2-9. And I think what happens here is Sam Houston State did cover back-to-back games before they had a letdown here in their last contest. And I wouldn't be surprised at all to see Sam Houston State continue to bounce back a little bit here. FIU is a good team. I don't take that away from them. Sam Houston State did win 10-7 last year, but Sam Houston's not going to the playoffs. And again, they won as a 21-point dog outright. They won as a 12-point dog outright. And I think they can hang tough here. So I'm going to back the dog here, plus the points here, plus the 10. All right, Craig, what you have here is UTEP plus 4-point dog here against Delaware. UTEP is 2-9. Delaware is 5-6. Delaware could use this game to go bowling here. Keep in mind that these two teams have never met. Delaware is obviously a team that returned 16 or 17 starters this year. Who do you like?
I like Delaware a lot. This might make my card. It either going to be my fourth or fifth college football game, or it'll be the first game off. I like Delaware -4. It means a lot to go bowling when you're a team like Delaware that doesn't have the rich history that some of these other small conference teams has. And I think they use that as motivation. Senior night, and they're beating up on a UTEP team that's just not a good team, can't go bowling. Give me Delaware -4. Next game, Georgia Southern at Marshall. I'm going to be honest. If you'd have told me Marshall had a chance this week, both these teams, by the way, are 5-6, have a chance to go bowling. If you just said Marshall has a chance to go bowling last game of the year, I'd be like, what have you been smoking? But that's the case. Marshall's favored by 9.5 here, total 63.5. What do you like?
Well, Georgia Southern comes off of that bad loss at the hands of Old Dominion, 45-10. They had just beaten Coastal Carolina. And Marshall, of course, comes off of the tough loss against App State, 24-26, but that beat Georgia State. So both these teams are off of losses here. And when you take a look at the fact that Georgia Southern beat this team 24-23 last year as well, Marshall's a sneaky good team, man. And it's a team that beat Old Dominion 48-24, the same team that Georgia Southern got rocked against, right, 45-10. Marshall also, I thought, was pretty competitive against Southern Miss, losing by a field goal. It's a team that beat App State on the road. It's a team that beat Coastal Carolina as well. It's a team that played USC early this year, and I didn't think they played that bad again. I'm sorry. It's a team that played Georgia early this year, 7-45. I'm pretty impressed with the way Marshall has handled things, and given the fact they have revenge against last year too. Notice that the line sits at 9.5. Seems like a lot of points here. I know it's like 77% is on Marshall, but I don't think that's true. I think people would take Georgia Southern plus the 9.5 here, so I don't really believe that. I'm going to back Marshall here. I think any team such as Marshall who can beat Old Dominion 48-24 when it really mattered. Now they're going to get another game here that it really matters, and I think they're going to do well. And I'm going to back Marshall minus the 9.5. All right, Craig. Louisiana Tech comes in as a 2.5 point dog against one of my favorite teams in Missouri State here. Keep in mind that Louisiana Tech is 6-5, Missouri State is 7-4, I believe. 7-4, yeah. And head to head, these two teams have never met. Who do you like?
Yeah, Missouri State. What a season! They have petitioned to be bowl eligible this year, even though they're supposed to sit out this year, being the first year in Division I football. Hopefully, we've seen that the NCAA usually rules in that favor. Hopefully they do, but it's been a great season either way. I think they use that to say, hey, this is going to be our bowl game, and if we get to go, it's an extra bonus. I think Missouri State wins this game. It's been a great story, and I think they stay hot here and get it done. -2.5, no problem. Next game, Georgia State at Old Dominion. Old Dominion, big favorite, 27.5, 8-3 on the year. Been a great season, undefeated at home. Total 59 here facing Georgia State. What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, what you get to here is a Georgia State team that lost to Troy 19-31, and then you get an Old Dominion team that Old Dominion team that won 45-10 in their last contest. Can Georgia State hang tough here is the question. And for Georgia State, for a team that's 1-10, it's been a tough year, right? But Old Dominion, of course, comes off 3 straight huge wins and covers. For an Old Dominion team, sitting at 8-3, they're going to get to face someone pretty decent for a bowl game, which is pretty exciting for the squad. And the question is, what is Georgia State going to do? Are they going to lay down? Or are they going to play, treat it like their Super Bowl and play their hearts out? I think they will. I mean, this is a Georgia Southern team or Georgia State team that has lost 5 straight covers, but they really had some bite against that South Alabama game where they only lost by 7. They showed bite against Marshall, losing by 12. They showed a bite against Coastal Carolina, losing by 13. And in their last game of the year, I think they're going to show some bite here, and I'm going to take them plus the 27.5. I think they're just going to show some heart, so I'm going to back them here. All right, Craig, Western Kentucky here, -2.5 point chalk against Jacksonville State. Western Kentucky is 8-3. Jacksonville State is 7-4. When it relates to these two teams, Jacksonville State beat them 52-12 last year, beat them pretty bad. What do you think? You think Western Kentucky comes through here?
Well, there's 3 teams at the top of the conference, and these two are 2 of them at 6-1. Jacksonville State, Kennesaw State, Western Kentucky, all 6-1. So we're going to see who really wants it the most. And it's been a great year for Jacksonville State. Remember, this is where Rich Rod came from, and he took a lot of players. There was a lot of turnover here at Jacksonville State. So this is like as much as it was kind of expected last year where, you're building towards that team. This team had a lot of moving parts in it. I think this is the game that finally hits them, that it's just too much for them. I like Western Kentucky -2.5. I think the odds maker have it right here. Take the lay the points with Western Kentucky. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think Western Kentucky is just a little too much late. But either way, great season by Jacksonville State. Next game, Arkansas State at App State. I told you last week App State was a live underdog take on money line. They covered last week, and they won the game, I believe, right? And they're back at it this week as a slight favorite. And if they're 5-6, so is Arkansas State. Whoever wins this game is going bowling. Who do you like here?
Yeah, I mean, Arkansas State comes off that tough loss to Louisiana and Lafayette, 34-20. App State comes off that nice win against Marshall, 26-24. So obviously you have 2 teams here that are both 5-6. How hungry are either of these teams? Well, Arkansas State now has lost back-to-back games coming in. They also lost to Southern Miss, but they have covered 5 in a row, right? They beat South Alabama. They beat Georgia Southern. They beat Troy. They were playing really well coming in. App State, of course, had lost to James Madison and Southern and Old Dominion and Coastal Carolina. It's a team that, but did manage to put together finally a big win over Marshall. I like Arkansas State here. It's a team that I've always liked Arkansas State as their head coach comes into this contest. And I think he continues to. I mean, you have a coach, Arkansas State coach, Butch Jones, who used to coach at Tennessee, obviously. He has the experience, and I think they're trending right at the right time. I'm going to back Arkansas State +3. Craig, South Alabama +9 here against Texas State. South Alabama's 4-7, coming off a monster win against Southern Miss last week, which is much to my chagrin. I hated that. And you have Texas State here, who is 5-6. Coming into this contest. When these two teams have met last year, Texas State won 45-38. Who do you like here?
We've said all season, South Alabama is super talented, just need to put it together. They put it together last week. Sometimes when a team puts it together, we see that kind of, happen a couple weeks in a row. I think that's the case here. I think it's just too many points. I think you take Alabama +9. I know Texas State needs this to become bowl eligible. They can win and not cover, though, folks. I think that's probably the case. Give me South Alabama +9 in this one. Middle Tennessee at New Mexico State. It's not often you say you've had a good year when you're only 4-7. But that's like history-wise, New Mexico State has not been very good for the last couple decades. So a win to go 5-7 makes a big difference, and it kind of gives you momentum into the offseason. New Mexico State's favored by 4 against a really bad Middle Tennessee team that's only 2-9 on the year. Total 52.5. What do you like?
Middle Tennessee comes off a nice win against Sam Houston, 31-17. I was impressed the fact that they lost to Western Kentucky, 26-42. That's not a bad loss. New Mexico State, of course, lost to Tennessee 9-42, but then beat UTEP, 34-31. They nearly beat Kennesaw State as well. They lost to Western Kentucky 16-35. I'm pretty high on New Mexico State, actually. I thought they've been playing pretty well lately. It's a team that, again, that covered against Tennessee, that covered against Kennesaw State. When you take a look at that, this sounds bad, but they were only down 3-21 against Tennessee. And, they obviously covered against Liberty and Sam Houston State as well. Middle Tennessee State obviously comes off of a win in their last contest, 31-17. That was their first win in about 7 straight contests. I think what happens here is you're going to get a pretty and keep in mind that New Mexico State won 36-21 last year. So I know Middle Tennessee State has revenge, but I like New Mexico State here. I think they're trending well, and I'm going to take them here. For UAB, 8.5 point dog. They're 3-8 here. Tulsa is 4-7 here coming into this contest. Bear in mind that UAB had this unfortunate situation, with their, unfortunate situation where you had a stabbing of 2 players last
on
week.
The day of the game.
Yeah, and they lost.
And they played the game. I was like, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, and they lost to South Alabama 48-18. Tulsa, of course, comes off a big win, 26-25 win over Army in their last contest as well. Who do you like?
Too much distraction at UAB. That's a terrible decision. I know they said they had a vote on the team. Dude, you don't let 18, 19, 20-year-old kids or young men vote if we're going to play the game. You do what's right. You say, hey, we had an accident here. Luckily, no one was killed or seriously injured. We're not playing the game because that game meant nothing. They got an interim coach, nothing. Give me Tulsa. They've already won 2 in a row. I think they make it 3 here. No problem. I think they win here against a distracted UAB team that should be focused on other things, to be honest. Next, BC at Syracuse. I can't believe a 1-10 BC team is on the road and favored by 3, total 52. What do you like?
Well, I mean, Syracuse just lost 7-70 at the hands of Notre Dame. It was just a brutal loss. And that's because Notre Dame was going for style points. BC, I thought, played really well against Georgia Tech, right? Lost 36-34. They only lost to Notre Dame 25-10. The same team that the Syracuse team lost 70-7, right? So keep that into perspective. And, I thought that you have a BC team that lost to Louisville 24-38, not bad. Lost to UConn 38-23, not bad. And a Syracuse team that just continues to get clobbered by everybody that they play. I think BC is the only way to look at this game. And as far as if you looked at it head-to-head, you'll see that BC beat them 37-31 last year, and BC's gotten, I think, better compared to that. And Syracuse.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Well, I don't want to say
BC
better.
was better last year.
Well, they were better. Let's just say the delta between BC getting worse and Syracuse getting worse compared to last year. I think the margin of difference between both those teams is much different this year. I'm going to take Boston College minus the points here. Craig, Monroe plus 9.5-point dog here against Louisiana Lafayette on a total of 49.5. Keep in mind that Louisiana Monroe sits at 3-8. Louisiana Lafayette sits at 5-6. 2 Louisiana teams here. Lafayette did beat them 37-23 last year. Who do you like?
I think it's similar this year. I think they win by probably 13 to 17 points. They'll get the cover here. Remember, Louisiana needs this game. It's senior night. They could go. They could get their 6th win, become bowl eligible. They have everything in front of them here. They played much better towards the end of the season. I think they get it done here, minus 9.5. Next game, SEC, Missouri and Arkansas. The what-if bowl for Missouri. I mean, they had every good team, it seems like, on the ropes and just couldn't finish the job. They did. Sounds like Drinkowitz is going to stay, signing an extension. Missouri's favored by 3, total 57.5. What do you like?
Well, he's a heck of a coach. I mean, he's doing this at Missouri. That's hard. Okay. And Missouri should be happy with what he's been able to produce there. Look, I mean, this team had Vanderbilt on the ropes, obviously. They had Alabama on the ropes, and they could be sitting instead of 7-4, they could be sitting quite possibly at 9-2 in this game. Missouri did lose to Oklahoma 17-6 in their last contest. And then you have Arkansas, who played well against Texas, but lost 37-42. So then the question becomes, what happens here? Missouri beat them 28-21 last year. I think this game goes probably over the posted total. You have a Missouri team that dropped 49 on Mississippi State after 2 back-to-back questionable games. Arkansas has had no problem scoring, really, to be honest with you. They put up, again, with Petrino's offense, 37 points. They just can't play any defense. It's a team that put up 22 on LSU, 35 on Mississippi State, and even 42 on Texas A&M at home. They consistently play well at home. I'm going to take the over here, Craig, between Missouri and Arkansas, especially if Arkansas can be an active dog. Craig, guess what? Wisconsin is favored here by minus 1.5, and Wisconsin has been playing pretty good football lately. We've been seeing it. They ended up extending their coach with Swell, which seemed a little bit of a shock, but it obviously made the trick. Wisconsin now has beaten Illinois 27-10. They covered against Indiana. They nearly beat Washington. They played well against Oregon. I think they're turning around possibly. They're 4-7 here. Minnesota, of course, comes in 6-5. Wisconsin, once again, let me repeat, they are favored on the road against Minnesota, coming off that big win against Illinois. Minnesota beat them 24-7 last year. Do you trust him here? Minnesota does come off that loss to Minnesota does come off that loss to Northwestern, and Minnesota lost to Oregon. Who do you like here?
I don't trust either one of these teams. So when that happens, you take the total. Take the under in this game, 37. There are going to be more runs than you can, like any game this week. They're just going to run the football. There's going to be I'm guessing maybe neither team gets past 10 to 12 pass attempts. That just tells you it's like that's what's wrong with both these teams. They haven't adapted to the new ways of playing football. Now, they've won 2 of their last 3 games, Wisconsin, so maybe they get the win. It's not going to be with my money. I'm going to take the under 37 in this one. Wake Forest at Duke. Duke is bowl eligible. Wake Forest is bowl eligible. You probably couldn't say that a decade ago about either one of these teams when you go into the last game of the season. So that is a positive. And we've seen some monster wins in the ACC this year. Duke's favored by 1.5, total 55. What do you like here?
I like Wake here. Look, I think Wake's the better team. I really like the fact that Wake beat Virginia this year 16-9. Yeah, they had that one bad game against FSU, but man, beating SMU 13-12 is a big deal. They should have beaten Georgia Tech too. They lost 29-30, to be honest. This is a team that easily could be 9-2, if not 10-1. They shouldn't have lost to NC State for that matter either. And the only bad game they had was against FSU. And Duke obviously, comes off that nice win against UNC, but they lost badly to UVA. They lost to Connecticut. They lost to Tech. They lost to Tulane. And given the fact that Wake has lost to this team for 3 straight years now, and they come in as a plus 1.5 point dog, I think Wake's the better team, dude. I'm going to take Wake plus the 1.5. It might make my card. Craig, LSU is a 10-point dog against Oklahoma. Maybe Oklahoma lays an egg here. Who knows? Anything can happen, but I don't even think the SEC refs are going to let Oklahoma lay an egg here. They just have a shot in the tunnel, and they'll just put up a score here. You can't trust them. They'll do anything to get 6 or 7 teams in at this point. LSU coming in as a 10-point dog. They obviously beat Western Kentucky 13-10. They were heavily favored in that game, and they did not get anything done. LSU also beat Arkansas by 1. Obviously, they have a new coaching staff, but they haven't been able to really do much, right? Of course, Oklahoma comes in off of a nice 17-6 win against Missouri. They, of course, beat my Alabama team 23-21 and beat Tennessee on the road and nearly beat Ole Miss. Ole Miss needed a miracle comeback. That Oklahoma team has a nasty defense. What do you think happens here?
Yeah, I think both of these teams are good defense. Remember, LSU only lost to your Alabama team 20-9, and they were like actively trying to beat themselves by throwing ugly interceptions and fumbles, and it was like – but the defense kept stepping up. I think it's another low-scoring game. I got an under on my last play at 37. How about in the lower total, 36.5? Give me the under, too. I would take LSU if I had to take a side in this one. I think LSU was looking past last week going, you know what? We've had a bad season. Yes. We're bowl eligible. If we go and beat Oklahoma next year, we cost them playoffs. That's kind of like a feather in their cap. I don't think they beat them, but I do think they keep it within the number. But I'm taking the under in this one. Next game, Troy at Southern Miss. Southern Miss just tough loss last week. It seemed like it kind of caught up to them. They really played good for most of the season, and last week just not much went right early in that game, and they never could get it going. Southern Miss favored by 7, though, total of 50. What do you like here?
Yeah, I mean, you obviously have a Southern Miss team that this did not get out of the bus, man, against South Alabama. It was such a bad game, and I was riding Southern Miss that game too. It was not good. Not good at all. Troy, of course, comes off of a nice win against Georgia State after that loss to Old Dominion. So you have a Southern Miss team that's going to be super motivated here. And, obviously you have Southern Miss. Troy's 7-4. Southern Miss is 7-4. Southern Miss was coming in off – now they're coming in off back-to-back losses now. And I think they have to motivate them here. Troy did bounce back last week, and they got some frustration done with lowly Georgia State, who has 1 win. Troy also beat them 52-20 last year. I think it makes sense to back Southern Miss minus the 7. They did come on strong to close out last game, but it was just a bad loss. But I'm going to back Southern Miss here. Craig, Penn State is now a 12.5-point chalk here. They are going to be bowl eligible if they win this game against Rutgers, who's trying to become bowl eligible as well. Penn State, of course, coming off a couple of huge wins. They're finding their footing here, beating Michigan State, beating Nebraska. They have a very emotional coach who made a case to be the head coach of this team. I don't know if that's going to work or not, but maybe.
No.
Maybe. I don't know. No, I agree with you. They're not going to go for him. But, it is impressive what they've done lately, and it's been a nice feel-good story. Rutgers, of course, coming off a contest where, it was tough, right? They got rolled by Ohio State 42-9. They did beat Maryland, of course, previously to that. What do you think happens here? This is a game that Penn State won a couple of years ago, 27-6, and Rutgers hasn't beaten Penn State. You have to go well back before 2014. What do you think happens here?
The physical nature of Ohio State's defense really takes a toll on teams and their, ability to just dominate them. And I think there's a hangover effect the next week. I know they're both going for bowl eligibility. I just think Penn State has a lot more positivity going lately. and I think they get it done here. I would love to see Penn State in a bowl because obviously by then they'll have named a coach, I'm sure. And so that whole, dynamic is super interesting to me when that happens. So let's take Penn State. I don't like the 12.5, but I think you have to play that. I just think they're the better team, and I think they dominate here. Next game, my Bearcats, tough. BYU was just better. They're just a better team, and it's been a good season for them, 7-4. The Bearcats, they're facing a 7-4 TCU team. Come off a nice win last week. TCU's -4, total 56.5. I'm just going to say I think the Bearcats are very vulnerable this week to kind of a huge letdown. Game day was there last week, remember, Fox Game Day. Big letdown spot.
Yeah, I mean, look, Cincinnati has now lost back-to-back games. They lost to BYU. They lost to Arizona in back-to-back games. And then you have a TCU team here who comes off a monster win against Houston, but they were blown out by BYU, 44-13. Do I really trust TCU here to, continue coming off that big win? This is a team that lost to Kansas State 28-41. They played West Virginia super tight, beating them 23-17, but they were a 16.5-point chalk. Cincinnati, of course, has now come off a series of losses, losing to Utah, losing to Arizona, losing to BYU. They got to get their frustration out on somebody. And I'm going to back Cincinnati here. I am. I'm going to back Cincinnati here, plus the 4. I'm going to take the points here. I'm going to bite here. These two teams have never met, and I think Cincinnati might turn the corner here. All right, Craig, Oregon here, 6.5-point chalk against Washington, a battle up there in the Northwest. Oregon is 10-1. Washington is at 8-3. Washington's had a pretty good season so far. Better than expected, I would say. So you have a Huskies team that comes off a game where they beat UCLA 48-14. Oregon, of course, going to the playoffs again. They got what they needed to get done against USC 42-27. This should be interesting to see how Dan Lanning gets these guys up here, but they're only a 6.5-point favorite on the road here. Bear in mind that the Oregon won 49-21 last year. Who do you like?
I think if they lose, they're out. So I think he'll have no trouble getting them up because the SEC has, if you're equal, SEC's getting in more teams in this year. They're just a deeper conference. The bottom half of the Big Ten is absolutely, even the middle's garbage. Washington's one of those middle teams. They lost to Wisconsin. That's how this team has gone lately. Give me Oregon -6.5. I think this is a gift. Kennesaw State, if they win, they are in the conference championship game. They are at Liberty this week and only a 2-point favorite. Going to be a tough sled, but I'm rooting for this Kennesaw State team. Total 55.5. What do you like?
Yeah, I like Kennesaw State. Liberty had a brutal loss against Louisiana Tech last week. I was on Liberty in that game, and that was just a horrible, horrible loss. And Kennesaw State, of course, comes into this contest beating Missouri State 34-41. Huge win for them. Bear in mind that Kennesaw State beat this team 27-24 last year. I don't think Liberty's going to get over that game. That was such a bad loss. And Kennesaw State only lost to Indiana 9-56. And I know that sounds crazy, but it was a game where they only lost to Wake Forest 9-10. And this is a team after those two games playing Wake and Indiana, everybody seemed easier after that. Merrimack, Arkansas State, Middle Tennessee, and they went on to win, 3, 6, 7 in a row before losing to Jacksonville State. Liberty, I don't think, gets over this loss against Louisiana Tech. It was such a bad loss. They should have won that game. And there's a reason why Kennesaw State is favored here, and I don't think that Liberty's going to get up over that. It'll be tough for them to wake up after that loss. I'm going to back Kennesaw State on the money line. Craig, Army here is 5-5. UTSA is 6-5. It should be an interesting game here. Army's trying to get bowl eligible here. They lost to Tulsa in a heartbreaker, 26-25 in their last game, whereas UTSA comes into this contest beating East Carolina 58-24. They are bowl eligible. As it relates to head-to-head, Army beat them 29-24. Do you think UTSA continues here? Or do you think Army, after they had won against Temple and Air Force before that Tulsa loss, what do you think happens here?
Yeah, Army's has 2 shots to get to bowl eligibility. They have Navy next after this one. That's always a crapshoot game. If I was Army, I would want to win this game and have one less pressure on an already ridiculous pressure game when Army Navy play every year to finish the regular season in college football. I like Army plus the 7.5. I think they gave Tulane fits. Really, Tulane's kind of dominated most teams this year in the American. I think UTSA is a good team. We've seen they've had really closed the season strong, nice bowl eligibility here. I think it's a big lookover spot. I'm going to take Army on senior night at UTSA.
Don't forget, free $60 worth of free premium selections, docsports.com/ICCT. If you want to try us out, that is the best way. Free $60 worth of premium selections. You try Craig and I out, and you get our premium selections and our fantastic analysis piped in there.
Vandy at Tennessee, the Battle of Tennessee, and Vandy still holds hope that if they win this game, they will go to 10-2, and I'm guessing become bowl eligible. Not bowl eligible, but playoff. Get a playoff spot here. But they have to win, and I don't think it really matters how if they win on the last second field. They don't need any style points. They just need to win. Tennessee's favored by 3, total 65.5. What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, the teams that are going to be interested in this are, and keep in mind, if Michigan beats Ohio State, right? Michigan right now in the rankings, and I know Michigan is 9-2. Michigan right now in the college football rankings is 15, Craig.
They'll get in if they beat Ohio State.
They will. You agree, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So now you have, forget Texas. There's no 3-win team that's going to get in. So now it is between Miami, Utah, Vanderbilt, and Michigan.
Well, Utah would get in. Well, not Utah. They're only getting one team in the Big 12. So it's either the Texas Tech or BYU at this point if BYU wins.
Right. So then you have Miami and Vanderbilt. And, you have us in Michigan, right? So if Ohio State beats Michigan and Vandy beats Tennessee, I think Vandy's in. Okay. I think Miami is going to be left out. I think Utah's going to be left out. I don't know what you think about BYU. Why do you think only Texas? Why do you think BYU is going to be out?
Well, they'll have to beat Tech. They've lost Texas Tech twice. That would if they go and they lose. Now, if they win that game, would they put Texas Tech in with 2 losses and BYU and they've split? That would be a crazy where they've split in the year. That would be crazy. I would not want to be the playoff committee trying to choose between those two.
Yeah, I can tell you this.
The SEC and Big Ten are getting all the benefits of the doubt. The Big 12 is not getting more than one team in. I just don't see it.
Right. Well, I can tell you that Vanderbilt lost to this team last year, right? And the year before, 36-23 and 48-24. The SEC, I can tell you, wants Vandy to win this game. Okay,
Oh, yeah.
They want Vandy to go in there and to win this game. And this team did lose to Texas 31-34. So it's not. They were tied against Alabama, even though Alabama had revenge on against them. They were tied against them on the road. And Tennessee, at the end of the day, did lose to Oklahoma, did lose to Alabama, did lose to Georgia. Those are all good losses. But I think Vandy here, I like Vandy plus a 3. You got a team that's trying to get into the playoffs. And if Vandy beats Tennessee, they have a strong case. Now, what's going to happen is someone's going to have to be knocked off if Michigan ends up beating Ohio State, which very much can happen. Very easily can happen. Michigan beating Ohio State.
I don't want to speak this into existence. Alabama plays Auburn. I know you know. If Auburn beats Alabama, it would be all these teams in the SEC fighting for 6 teams fighting for 5 spots, maybe 6 teams fighting for 7 spots. Oh, it would
Alabama's not going to lose to Auburn. That might be my famous bad word. That might be my famous last words. But I don't see Alabama. I don't even think. I think the SEC will make a phone call just to make sure that doesn't happen. They'll be like, well, there's just too much money at stake at this point now, man. All right, Craig, you have James Madison here, 22-point chalk on the road against Coastal Carolina. James Madison is 10-1. Coastal Carolina is 6-5. You have a James Madison team that, has looked great this year. It's a team that just beat Washington State 24-20. And then you have a Coastal Carolina team that comes off a loss, I believe, to South Carolina 7-51. Do you think that Coastal Carolina can, James Madison beat them 39-7 last year. I mean, I guess if you're trying for style points, you can, but do you like James Madison here?
Well, James Madison is hoping that we see a little chaos in the American Conference and they would potentially be the team that picks up the pieces and they could be the playoff team that comes from the outside the Power Four. I think they do need some style points. Remember, they will get a little extra because they'll play in the Sun Belt Championship next week. I do think they win. I don't think they cover. I think they'll try to cover to style it up there. But this Coastal Carolina team's played a little better towards the second half of the season. I like Coastal Carolina plus the 22. Next game, Florida State and Florida. I mean, if you'd have said after week 1, when Florida State upset Alabama, they would be in this situation they are in right now. Underdog on the road at Florida. But FSU has not won a true road game in 2 years. Now, I had to look it up. That is a true fact. And they are on the road this week. Total 50.5. What do you like?
Well, I mean, it's like what we talked about. If FSU wins this game, they're going bowling. And it's been a horrible year for them. But, what would
Florida like to keep them from bowling?
How funny is that, right? Florida would love nothing more than to have neither of these teams go bowling, which would be fantastic, too. Florida State comes off 11-21 loss to NC State. Florida comes off of a 31-11 loss to Tennessee. Two teams that are just – it's got to be horrible for Florida schools right now, including Miami for that matter. It's pretty bad, but South Florida might have had the best season out of everybody. And it depends on if Miami loses to Pittsburgh, how that shakes out too. And UCF had a bad season too. So you have Florida State here who did beat Tech and who did beat Wake Forest. And that Wake Forest game was probably the most impressive. And they barely lost to Pittsburgh by 3. They were there in that Miami game losing by 6. They were there in that Virginia game as well. I actually would have taken Florida State minus the 1. Florida has not looked good after that Georgia game. They look bad against Kentucky. They look pretty good against Ole Miss, but they look bad against Tennessee as well. You're going to think I'm nuts. Florida won 31-11 last year. Florida has all sorts of issues going on. Florida State, they had some close games. At the end of the day, they did beat my Alabama team, although it was early in the year. I'm going to back Florida State plus the 1. I think if they can win this game, you beat Florida, you went to a bowl game, you salvage some stuff. You know what I mean?
Well, they said Norvell's coming back next year either way. So
yep.
I don't know how that will affect this game. We saw at Wisconsin.
I think it's good. I think it's going to give them some continuity. Yeah. I wouldn't, Florida obviously has moved on from their coach. I like FSU here. Craig, Oregon State plus 13.5 point dog against Washington State here. Oregon State is 2-9. Washington State is 5-6. Trying to get into trying to go bowling, right? And Oregon State did lose to Tulsa 14-31. They lost to Sam Houston as well. These are bad losses, dude.
Is this right? Did they play twice this year?
What's that?
They played November 1st. They're playing twice in 1 year?
Yeah. I mean, because of the scheduling issues.
Because of the way the Pac-12 broke up.
Yeah, that's the reason why. And Oregon State beat
them
7. And now Washington State is looking for revenge. And Oregon State lost to Tulsa and then lost to Sam Houston. It's pretty bad enough that you're playing each other freaking twice in 1 year. But that's great for Washington State because if they can get, and they did lose to them last time. And Washington State played really well against James Madison in their last game. And they beat La Tech. And obviously they beat Toledo, a pretty good team.
If you have to face a team twice, you should not be allowed to go to a bowl. That should be the new rule. If you have to play a team twice, you don't get to go to a bowl. But I do think they win. It's the only question is, do they cover the big number? I would say punt on this game. This is one, if you're betting this game, you should like pay a super tax. Instead of a 10-cent line, you should have to pay like a 50-cent line. Don't bet this game. Take the under 42 if you had to bet it. Stay away from the side in this one, even though I do think they get bowl eligible. Virginia Tech and Virginia. Battle of Virginia. Nice little rivalry game. And Virginia, I know Virginia is probably like, man, what ifs? They look like they had a chance to make the playoffs. They just needed to win out. If you'd have told them they were 9-2 beginning of the year, they would take it. And it's just how it came. It kind of came towards the end. They're 9.5 point favorite against their rival here. Total 53. What do you like?
Yeah, I mean, Vatech here, you have a Vatech team that, it's just
they covered last week, right? Franklin was on the sideline. They covered last week.
Yeah, I mean, they lost 34-17 against Miami, right? Yeah. And then you have Virginia here. But, I think Franklin's going to be fine over there. I think he's going to lead them to a couple of big wins, and I think they'll go bowling. I think it'll be fine.
I think he'll win the ACC.
Yeah, he says he's going to win a national championship there.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that. You're not going to have the NIL money. there. But, you have a Virginia team that comes off of a big win against Duke, huge win against Duke, okay? And now they're 9.5-point chalk favorites here. I think what happens here is probably, a total of 53. I felt like Virginia Tech only putting up 17 points. They're going to bounce back here. I felt that Virginia, the last time they were at home, they only put up 9 points against Wake Forest, so that's going to motivate them. I like the over here between these two teams. I think it's going to be a high-scoring affair. I think Tech is going to leave nothing on the table, and it's going to be a high-scoring affair. Craig, Rice, 28-point dog against South Florida. Rice is an interesting team. They had a new coach that came over from Davidson. The last contest, they lost 24-56 against North Texas, but it's a team that's 5-6. Not bad. I mean, not bad for a first-year coach. South Florida, of course, comes into this game beating UAB 48-18 after that stabbing incident. As it relates to, Rice beat them 35-28 last year. If that means anything, what do you like here?
Rice had one of the greatest chances at home last week. The marketing department said free beer for anybody that comes to the game. Now, didn't work because they still lost against their in-state rival. But I like the effort that they're putting behind the team. It's like free beer. You can't get college and some Texas boys out there. You're never getting them out. I like USF this week. It's the what-if year for USF because obviously the hot start to the year and a couple scratch-your-head losses that they probably should have won. They didn't. I think they take it out on Rice this week. And we saw they couldn't stop North Texas. This USF offense is as good, if not better. You remember how bad they beat Rice or North Texas at North Texas. I think USF names their score in this one, lay the 28. Next, Maryland and Michigan State. And Michigan State, I believe, is winless in the Big Ten. If you would have said that for the season, I'm like, no, they'll find a win. But they're 0-8, same as Purdue. They should have to. This game should be canceled. They should have to play Purdue. But it's the case. They are a 4-point favorite. Can they break the streak here? Total 48.5.
Yeah, I do think they will. I like Michigan State here. To be honest with you, Maryland, of course, comes off that loss to Michigan 45-20. They lost to Illinois. They lost to Rutgers. They lost to UCLA. They just can't figure out how to win ball games. They lost to Nebraska ever since that Nebraska game. But Michigan State, they played hard against Iowa. It took Iowa a huge effort of 13-0 in the fourth quarter to win that game. Michigan State lost to Penn State, but they didn't play that bad. They were down 10-14 at the half before Penn State put up 14 points in the fourth quarter. And this is a team that played Minnesota really tough, and then they lost to them by 3 points in overtime. So they've been right there the last 3 weeks. I think they finally get over the hump. They actually played Michigan really tough, too, to be honest with you. It was a game where they were only down 7-10 at the half. And I'm going to take Michigan State here. I think they continue to hang tough, and I think they're going to find themselves to a nice victory here. So I'm going to back Michigan State here. You have Northwestern here that comes in as a 7-point dog against Illinois. Northwestern, by the way, is 6-5. Illinois is 7-4. So both these games are going bowling. But for an overall year, that Northwestern game winning against Minnesota was absolutely monstrous, right? And Illinois, of course, comes off of a difficult game where they lost to Wisconsin 27-10. What do you think happens here? You have Illinois coming off a loss. You have Northwestern coming off a big win. You have head-to-head. Illinois beat them, but 38-28. You think Illinois bounces back here, or you think Northwestern gets a little revenge?
I think it's being bowl eligible for Northwestern's big. Really big. Remember, they're opening the new stadium next year. So it's like, you have a little momentum going to the next year. You're going to get to go to a bowl game. I think that relief, and it was senior night. And now you face an Illinois team that's upset. They played terrible last week. And it's senior night for them. I think Illinois lays the wood. This is a better Illinois team than even their 7-4 record indicates. And I think they show it this week. Next game, Alabama at Auburn. Your Alabama Crimson Tide. The team that can't run the ball at all. If they could run the ball, this might be the best team in the country. It's their one glaring weakness, which is crazy with all the great running backs we've had in the last 15, 20 years from Alabama. Alabama's favored by 5.5, total 46.5. Interim coach at Auburn. Boy, would you be able to never buy a beer in town again if you win. What do you like?
I like Auburn, and I can't believe I'm saying it, but it's a bad spot for Alabama. I could theoretically see Alabama losing this game and not making the playoffs. Okay. And I know
Possibly.
that which would be terrible. I could see a situation where Alabama possibly loses the game. Auburn took it to Vanderbilt, okay? And Auburn was up 20-10 that game before Vandy had to come back and win that contest. Auburn beat a pretty good Mercer team as well, 62-17. So then, I got to be honest with you, and you got to coach by. This sounds horrible. Maybe Alabama pulls it out. Alabama, of course, in the past has won 28-14 and 27-24, but that loss against Oklahoma is not a good loss. And guess what? That was exactly
Well,
the same.
if Oklahoma gets in the playoffs, it'll be a good loss.
Yeah, but guess what? Every time you knew something was up when Alabama was only favored by 6, right? At home against the team they had revenge against. They were favored by 11.5 against Vanderbilt when they had revenge, and they covered. And against Oklahoma, they were favored by 6. Every time there are these small favorites, Alabama doesn't do well. Now Alabama comes into this game, he's going to have, and the reason why is the guys aren't tough like Saban had them. They're not winning the trenches at all. They're winning the skill positions, which is like West Coast, Washington-esque.
I was going to say, that's what he had at Washington.
He's got skill positions, but they're not tough in the trenches, and they can't run the ball. And that is why Washington went as far as they did, but they couldn't win when it really mattered in the trenches. But they had those great skill positions with Penix, right? He's very good with the skills on the outside, but the inside, they're not doing it. And against even in the LSU game, guess what? Alabama rushed for 56 yards. You're right. And in the Oklahoma game, that's a Brent Venables coach team. They rushed for about 80 yards. Okay, the South Carolina game, Alabama finally had to come back to win that game. They rushed for about 111 yards. So we'll see. But every time DeBoer's been challenged, Craig, DeBoer has come through. So I will say that. I'll put the total around. What is the total sitting around? 46.5. I'm going to take the under here, okay? But I do think that Auburn probably covers. I do think that Alabama might squeak out a 3-point win just because the SEC might make a phone call and be like, look, it's $1 here. I'm going to need you to call an offensive holding here. So, yeah, I'm going to take Alabama. I'm going to take the under, Craig. All right, Craig, Charlotte here, 30-point dog against Tulane. Charlotte is 1-10. Tulane is 9-2. Okay, but we should just be happy that Charlotte has a football team, I guess. They lost to Georgia 35-3, which isn't bad. And then you have Tulane here, who comes in rolling here, who comes off of that 37-13 win over Temple and 34-25 win over Florida Atlantic. What do you think happens here?
I think this is a name-to-score game for Tulane. Senior night, Summerall. A lot of people think he won't make it until the championship game in America, and that he'll be at Auburn. It could be at Florida. I've heard his name at all the positions right behind
Lane Kiffin got offered $90 million to go to LSU.
That's what I heard. So we'll see where he'll end up in one of those spots that Lane Kiffin doesn't take, basically. Great year for Tulane. I think they win big here, and they send them off on a high note. Next game, North Carolina State. Battle of rivalry week for the state of North Carolina. NC State's favored by 7.5, coming off a huge win midweek against Florida State. Is this a letdown spot? Total 47.5.
Yeah, I think North Carolina is going to have a good game here. Keep in mind that NC State beat them 35-20 last year. And North Carolina, they didn't play that bad against Duke, right? They were down 10-17, and they eventually lost. But if you take a closer look at that game, as far as the team stats are considered, North Carolina had 305 total yards. They passed for 204, more than Duke. They just didn't rush enough as much as Duke. And then you have an NC State team that comes off a huge win against Florida State in a game where I think it was more that Florida State didn't play well than NC State playing really well. Florida State had 383 yards, total yards. They just couldn't convert, okay? And that was the difference, right? They had 2 interceptions that were thrown, 2 fumbles that were lost. We're talking about 4 turnovers here, which is why I also think that they're not going to be so bad at Florida. I'm taking UNC plus the points here. I think Belichick is going to try to leave something for people to remember him by, going into the next season. All right, Craig, you have UCLA is a 21.5-point dog here against USC. They are 3-8. USC, of course, is 8-3. USC is doing, they're fine, but they're not able to break through. That's the key. UCLA comes off that 48-14 loss to Washington. And then USC, of course, that Notre Dame game was exciting, but of course they lost. So they ended up losing to Notre Dame. Then they beat Nebraska. They beat Northwestern. They beat Iowa, but then lose to Oregon. Who do you like?
Big, like they had high hopes that they could beat Oregon and then take Oregon's spot in the playoff picture. That didn't happen. I think this is a huge letdown spot against a rival getting all these points. I know UCLA's kind of like, when it was a great story when you have the interim coach and they're winning some games, they're winning at Penn State, you're winning against Penn State, you're winning. Those stories are gone, but I think you forget about them if you can at least keep it close against USC, and I think they do that. SMU at Cal, of course. Big news is Justin Wilcox was fired after 9 seasons, or this was his 9th season. I don't know what you expect at Cal, but obviously they won it more. SMU's big favorite here, minus 13.5, and SMU I think is as good as they were last year. It's just last year they had a little more favorable schedule. And they didn't have that this year. Total 53. What do you like here?
Yeah, I'm pretty high on SMU. Obviously, they just romped Boston College and they beat Miami, and this is a team. And Cal, of course, lost to Stanford, but SMU, beat the snot out of Louisville 38-6. Right, so they've had 3 huge wins. They lost to Wake Forest, but and they beat Clemson on the road. If they beat Wake Forest, SMU would be. Well,
I think they have a chance to get in. SMU 6-1. There's 3 6-1 teams: Pitt, Virginia, and them. So if Pitt loses to Miami and they win this game, they're going to face Virginia for the championship. And I believe if they win, they're going to get in.
God, man. That's another reason why everybody would want Alabama to lose too. You know what I mean? So it
wouldn't matter because they would be the automatic qualifier from the ACC, right? So
yeah,
but they won't get the bye this year. Remember how Clemson got the bye last year? Right. Because they won the conference, they won't get the bye.
No, that's ridiculous. So, I do think SMU needs some style points. The only thing is California is going to play well because, once the coach gets fired, the team usually plays well. So I'm going to take the over here. I think Cal will exceed expectations, and I think SMU will need some style points. Craig, UNLV 7.5-point chalk here against Nevada. UNLV is 9-2. Mullen had a great season. They hit the over 7.5 win mark, total win mark for them. Nevada is 3-8 here. Coming in, UNLV, they've had a great year, man. You give them a lot of credit here. He's really turned the program around and come out with a 38-10 win over Hawai'i. Must be nice to be coaching out there instead of the SEC for Mullen. He doesn't have to deal with these monsters. He's probably living the life out there. So Nevada comes into this game, beating Wyoming 13-7 the last game, beating San Jose State before that. So back-to-back big wins for them. Who do you like here, considering that UNLV won 38-14 last year?
I think they might have a chance. There's 3 teams tied. I think Boise plays New Mexico this week. And those two are both 5-2, and so is UNLV, and San Diego State 6-1. So I do think they don't have the head-to-head would be Boise beat UNLV. So I think New Mexico needs to win. But it's been a great story. I mean, Odom was a great story, what he did at UNLV, not so much when he left at Purdue, but he did a great job, rebuilt it, and Mullen just kept it going. And the crazy thing is we haven't heard Mullen's name up for jobs. I kind of thought we would this year. Maybe next year. People want to see if he can do it back-to-back years. But I like UNLV here. I know it's a rivalry game. People that don't know, this is a pretty big rivalry game, but I don't think it matters. Nevada's just not very good this year, just 3-8 on the year. I think UNLV finds a way, gets enough stops late, covers the 7.5. Next game, Fresno at San Jose State. I can't believe Fresno's not a bigger favorite in this one because San Jose State has found ways to lose too many times. Fresno -3, total 46.5. What do you like?
Yeah, well, look, Fresno is, comes after that loss to Utah State, 28-17. They beat Wyoming. They had beaten Boise State, though, 30-7. So that's one of the reasons why. I mean, obviously, this team is 7-4. San Jose State, of course, comes off of that loss to San Diego State, 25-3. They continue to think that this team is better than they actually are. Because of their famous coach, right? The former Navy coach who sits there in San Jose State. But having said that, I like this game to go under. It's sort of an indirect lean on San Jose State. When they do well, it's probably through when they can play somewhat of a decent defense. They gave up 55 points in their last game in against Nevada. They got to show up a little bit better on the defensive side of the ball. So I'm going to back the under here, under 46.5. I don't love it by any means. I like, to be honest with you, I think that I think you can take a look at SMU, or you can even take a look at UCLA or UNC instead of this game. But small lean here on the under. All right, Craig, Notre Dame minus 32.5-point chalk against Stanford. Interesting because obviously you have a Stanford team that comes off a win, right?
Against Cal.
Beating Cal 31-10. And Notre Dame needs, Notre Dame's not taking any chances at all. Everybody was calling for their head coach's head after the first two losses, and how quickly things changed. They won against, Pittsburgh 37-15 on the road. They beat Navy 49-10. They beat Notre Dame, or they beat Syracuse 70-7. So they're playing a bunch of cupcake teams right now, including Stanford now as a 32.5-point chalk. Who do you like?
This is the good thing about not being in a conference. They don't have to worry about conference championship next week. So they're going to be in. They're going to kill Stanford here. How do you play this game? It's all about value. Take them in the first half. I think second half we see Love and some of the starters pulled as they're up probably 4 touchdowns. Minus 17.5 in the first half, no problem. Lay the wood. Lay the wood, Notre Dame. Wyoming at Hawai'i, last game for us. Hawaii's minus 7.5, total 45. Kind of sad. This is our last game after 14 weeks of doing this. Actually, 14.5 because week 0. But what do you like here in this match?
That's why you got to be on the edge, man. You got to be on YouTube Premium. You get an extra video from us every single day, and you get a written summary. That's why it's fantastic. And you got to jump on our football card. Not to mention the fact that I am 15-5 to start the college basketball season for plus, almost 5,000, and I'm 23-12 to start the NBA season for like plus 4,000. But as it relates to Wyoming, Hawai'i total sits at around 45. Wyoming comes into this game. 4-7 are not going bowling. Hawai'i is 7-4. You have a Wyoming team here that in their last contest, of course, they came off a loss. They lost in Nevada 13-7 in a tight game, but they did lose. And then you have a Hawai'i team that comes into this contest losing to UNLV 38-10. I got to think that Hawai'i is going to bounce back in a decent way. The only problem is that 71% is back in Hawai'i, which scares the bejesus out of me. So then, you have Wyoming that beat them a couple of years ago, 42-9. But Wyoming has also failed to cover the last 3 in a row, I think, Greg. And I think Hawai'i coming off that big win. They had beaten San Diego State. They'd beaten Utah State. They had some huge wins, including beating Stanford. I'm going to lay it. I'm going to lay it on Hawai'i, and I think they get it done, even though they're a massive public favorite.
All right, that's what we have. That's it. But we're not done. We'll have all the bowl season for you, so make sure you stay tuned. Put in the comments what you like for today. Tell us what you like, what you don't like for what we do on a daily basis. And don't forget, get in our best pass plays. How do you do it? 2-for-1 football pass, just $99, DocSports.com/Craig Arun. And then get in, add in on that our YouTube Premium. The link is in the description to get in. Just $49.99 a month. Get you all 3 levels and all kinds of about $3,000 worth of plays per month. All right, guys, have a great day. See you again tomorrow.